Today is Saturday, April 15th, 2017. Welcome to the Survivor Fans Podcast. I'm Joanne.
And I'm Stacy.
And this is the Listener Feedback Show for Week 6 of Survivor Game Changers.
Survivor is the human condition in a pressure cooker. Sometimes things get ugly and we end up having to deal with that. So this is one of those shows where we're going to talk about something ugly that happened in the episode a lot, but we're not going to limit it to just that because we're fans of the game and the game's going to continue. So we're going to talk about
That's
the game,
right.
game a little bit too. I was walking yesterday and I was up above Lake Natoma in the bluffs. It turns out there's like bald eagles up there nesting now.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was standing there watching one of the bald eagles from the appropriate distance and all these signs up saying you can't get within a certain distance of them. So I was being respectful of the bald eagles, but admiring the one that was up there standing by the nest. At the same time, I was listening to this podcast, and they were interviewing the host from The Art of Charm, and he was talking about one of the principles that they teach people, which is always be giving generously. And I was standing there watching this majestic eagle up on the bluffs high above Lake Natoma and listening to that. I was like, man, I really like that. I like that sentiment a lot. And then I thought, that's what we get in this podcast all the time. We get people giving generously. There's no covert contracts. There's not expectations. They're not doing A to get B or anything like that. But sometimes, and this was one of the life examples that he shared, someone will be giving generously and later down the road, or like what he was saying was over the horizon, it ends up helping someone else. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of that sentiment in the feedback this week. There's a lot of potential benefit in discussing tough topics like this. And it's hard for people to put themselves out there and do that, but we just had a magnificent turnout this week in the feedback. A lot of people didn't know what to say at first, but they were moved to contribute to the podcast and to share some of their perspective.
Yeah, and a lot of people shared generously about themselves, which is not always easy to do either. So
yeah, it's definitely not easy.
It's all appreciated.
Absolutely. Okay, with that said,
let's get to it.
Yeah, and with this fantastic, generous group of how many?
44.
44 super fans who wanted to contribute and give back to the podcast and share their thoughts about it this week from all walks and ranges of life and from different places around the world.
And I think sharing helps us move forward.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Let's get to it.
All right. First up, we have audio from Pete.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. This is Pete from Boston calling here. Oh, well, I'm not going to do a woo this week because that was just very disturbing what Vanna did. I mean, I'm really speechless. It was unnecessary and completely just foolish. I mean, that was terrible, completely terrible and unnecessary. And I felt so bad for Zeke and everyone that even watched at home. I mean, even Probst just didn't know what to say, but I love that he didn't make sure he wasn't off the hook there too, saying when he was trying to be all apologetic after. I mean, he said it, and he's going to have to live with it for the rest of his life now. But I give props to Zeke for standing there, for just sitting there and somehow taking it. I don't know how he did it, and I love that his tribe mates were backing him up, especially Ty. Ty was very vocal, and even Sarah saying she loves Zeke for who he is as a person. I mean, that really even brought a little tear to my eye. I'm starting to really love Sarah, by the way. Even Ozzy didn't know what to say either. Even he said that was completely unnecessary too and dumb. I mean, Vaughn, I don't know what he was thinking. He had a great plan in getting rid of Ozzy, and all of a sudden he completely blew it. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I really don't. I mean, and again, Vaughn doesn't make the jury. I mean, how else can you describe it? I think Vaughn is all done playing. He's going to have to take some time off. And but I want to know, guys, what do you think? This is an important question. Would you rank this moment the number one most disturbing thing? Because you had, remember, the issue with Shireen in the Worlds Apart season with Will and Dan Foley. And then remember the Brandon Hance meltdown with Philip Shepard when they had an impromptu tribal council. That's what happened with Vanna tonight. Only Vanna was right at tribal, which made it all the more worse. Why would you even blow yourself up like that right at tribal when you're about to get rid of someone anyway? My God. But I give props to all the other new crew members. Even Debbie, by the way, was very good there too. And I never thought I'd say that about Debbie. And again, hats off to Zeke. Really loved Zeke now, and I'm thinking of Zeke. And I know he's a strong guy. And I just hope Varner, I hope Varner, apologize. I mean, he did apologize, but I hope now that he's had time to process it, he's thinking even harder with what he did. I mean, it was very disturbing. But what do you guys think, guys? Where do you rank this crazy moment with the Brandon Hances and the Naonkas and the Will and Dan Foley with Shireen? I'm very curious what you guys think. Take care.
Thanks, Pete.
All of those instances were very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Shireen thing really disturbed me.
Yep.
And Brandon's, that whole thing,
that threat of violence that was there
to the point that I thought if Survivor continued season after season with things like that happening, that I might even let go.
Mm-hmm.
It was that disturbing for me. And so was it was all equally disturbing, I think, to me.
You can go back further. There are other standouts, all-stars, with Rich Hatch and Sue Hawk and what happened there.
Yeah,
and how that ended up hurting her. And then Thailand with Ted and Gandia. Remember, that was
and the emotional damage
one.
She suffered, Shireen.
Right.
It affected them on an emotional, personal level. And the same as this did with Zeke.
This one feels really intense because it's so...
It feels more intense. It's fresh.
Yeah, because of that.
It's horrifying. It's all those things. But I remember feeling those things as well with the other cases. The Gandia, that was uncomfortable.
With Ted, yeah.
Yeah. And there have been instances, but I'm grateful that there haven't been more.
I don't think I can rank them, Pete. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't rank them either. They were all disturbing.
It's so rough, and people have to deal with this. That's the thing. There's real life in the reality shows, for sure. This is one of those where it creeps in and has a big impact. It's already had a huge impact on Varner. He's lost his job. Just the recency bias of it makes it feel incredibly bad in that regard. There's probably the potential for something good to come out of this one, more so than the others, I think, in the long term. Maybe it's got an even bigger stage.
I think
because of where we are at this point as a culture.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the important things is what happened with Sarah, for each individual to examine. Of course, everyone feels badly for Zeke. I do personally think that he's going to do beautifully from this. I just think that's who he is. And he's going to get lots of support. I also hope Varner does, because I feel badly for him, because I've done things to myself, and it really is harder to deal with things when you did it to yourself. And so I have empathy for that. But I think Sarah, even though at the time I was amazed, number one, that she could process that so quickly. That would have taken me forever to process
I'm a lot slower with that,
but
too.
I do think it's important for all of us, and I think that's part of of why it affects us so deeply is that each of us need to take the experience, look within ourselves, feel our emotions, and deal with them personally, and so you can move forward from that.
It's always hard when you're in the middle of it, but it's another way that actually this show, I feel like I'm a better person for having been a fan of this show, and then for us having created this podcast, because I get the benefit of all these different perspectives and to see how different people handle different situations. There are teachable moments that happen in the show, and some of them are painful and some of them are exhilarating and exciting, and there's something to be learned almost every episode. Thanks, Pete.
Okay, let's move on with what other people have to say.
Next up, we got an email from Nicola in Lexington, Kentucky. Hello, Joanna and Stacy, my Survivor family. Wow, what an episode. I'm still just bewildered, sad, and just plain befuddled. I just cannot fathom in what universe Varner even thought that what he did would benefit his game in any way, shape, or form. As Stacy said, just so disappointing. To say nothing of the fact that if he hadn't brought that up, he might have had a chance of putting the vote on Ozzy. The girls were definitely interested, and we all know how easily Ty can be persuaded. I'm a lesbian. I did not come out until I was 36. I lived in the Midwest and in a very small community. My ex-husband was very understanding, and his family were my rocks. It is a slow and personal process. You don't know how people will react. I lost a few people who were supposedly my friends, but just couldn't deal. You worry how coworkers and employers will react, and it's something that should be left to you to reveal when you are ready. I was more fortunate than a lot of people. Being gay does not define me. It's just part of me. I applaud Zeke for just wanting to be Survivor Zeke, not the first transgender person to play Survivor. There are many situations I've experienced where it's not really pertinent or important that people know, and isn't this how it should be? People living their lives the way they choose, loving who they love, following their dreams. Who doesn't dream of being on Survivor? As I've always told my children, you treat people the way you wish to be treated. If we all did this, the world would be a much better place. If you are not hurting anyone, live and let live, I say. Varner, ultimately being a gay man, should have been even more aware of the consequences of his actions. Outing Zeke in the way he did was completely thoughtless. Zeke was so strong, he handled the whole thing with more poise and grace than I would have been able to. It's hard to think about anything else from the episode apart from the ending, and I have not had the heart to rewatch yet. But a couple things come to mind. Michaela laying in the sand when everyone was having their moment. I looked at my daughter and said, you know she is biting her tongue. No doubt she would have liked to have made some snarky comment. Maybe it will be revealed on Tea with Michaela B. Debbie did a good job keeping her exile experience to herself, and finally I'm not sure if it was all the pizza talk, but after that I did notice that Haley and Brad both looked like they had dropped some significant weight. Sierra said they had not eaten in 3 days. Who's supposed to be fishing over there? Well, that's it for now. Glad the merge is upon us, and I actually got all the points in JSFL this week. Congrats. First time this season. Take care, everyone. Thanks for all you do, Joanna and Stacy. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Nicola. Cheers. Next up, we got audio from Jill. We were talking just this past week about we wondered where she was, right? Great to have you back, Jill.
Hi, Joanna and Stacy. It's Jill from the Outback here. No, not the original Outback Steakhouse that started there in Tampa, but the region in Australia. I'm sure a lot of this week's feedback's going to be about the Tribal Council this week. What was Varner thinking? And especially to come from here, if anyone would have had any idea what Zeke's going through, it should be Varner. And he said that he was the cheerleader. I don't want cheerleaders like that on my side. Out of all of this, I reckon that Zeke's going to do okay. He obviously has lots of support around him. It must have been a hell of a 9 months waiting for this to come out, for this night, but he's handled it so well. And even at the Tribal Council, how he didn't just get up and deck Varner, I don't know. Or how anyone else didn't deck Varner. I wanted to deck Varner. I think everyone handled it pretty well. The show, the survivors, everyone pretty much except Varner. Varner's probably stuffed up Zeke's game a bit. I think that people might not want to go to the end with Zeke now because he's got this story that will go with him. That'll be pretty tough to sit next to, I should think, at final tribal. I think I'll leave it there. I struggled to find the right words to put together this week's feedback. Sorry I haven't been in it all this season, but I'm watching and I'm listening to your podcast. I love it. Happy days, everyone. Bye.
So good to hear from you again, Jill. Thanks.
I love to hear your voice.
Next up, we got audio from Ann.
This is Ann from San Diego. It's almost 3 hours now since I watched the episode tonight, and I still can't sleep. It's just so upsetting. I mean, I still can't believe Varner did that. I was a fan of his before, and some of his commentary was just so hilarious. But now I just can't even relate to him at all. Particularly as him being a gay man, I just cannot believe that he would do that to a fellow person in the LGBT community. Like everybody on the tribe said, that's real life, that's personal, and it's just hard to believe that he went there, even with lack of food and everything. I'm just so sad. It's heartbreaking to watch, and I really didn't see that coming. And I think even if people can't relate directly to what that would be like, even if you don't know any gay people in your life, everybody has something in their past or their present that, they wouldn't want millions of people to know about, and they've maybe only told a couple of their close friends. And to have a person who you thought was a close friend like that, who Zeke thought he was good friends with Varner, and he had bonded with him, to have somebody turn on you like that, not only tell your entire tribe, but in such a public way, it's just hard to believe. So just the betrayal of that is just really horrific. So I'm really glad that my son wasn't in the room at the time, and not because of the issues, I think I could have explained that to him, but I don't like watching people just being mean to each other, and I wouldn't have wanted him to experience that. As it is, I had a hard time explaining to him why I was so upset. Anyways, I like it when Survivor is fun. I don't like it when people get that personal. It's just beyond villainous. So I really hope that things are going to get better in the next few episodes going forward, because I'm really feeling like I did after Worlds Apart. The whole rest of the season was just really sad for me after that whole Shireen incident. The only good thing is that Zeke's tribe mates stood up for him, and I thought that was amazing. So hopefully this doesn't affect Zeke's game, because I would hate for that to really drag him down, and he doesn't have the support of his family there, so that's got to be hard, even with supportive tribe mates. And I really think he handled it well. It's really putting a positive spin on it, and I really admire that. So, okay, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ann.
Up next, we have an email from Skippy in Utah. Hi, Joanne and Stacy. This week was the most important episode of the season, and possibly any Survivor season. I've only ever cried 3 times during Survivor. Twice last season when Adam revealed his mom's cancer, then at the finale, and this week. The reason I feel so strongly about the significance of this episode is because it transcended the game. Transcend means to surpass or go beyond the limits of. This week went beyond the limits or surpassed anything else in Survivor history, and we need to look no further than Sarah for that. I've often wondered why Sarah would be allowed on a season called Game Changers based on her past performance, but last night the reason became clear: how inspired it was to put her there for that moment. For her and others like her, she transformed before our eyes. The scales of bigotry melted, and she had the moment all people must have in order to really love thy neighbor as thyself. So what Survivor did Wednesday was, without warning, it brought up a taboo topic. It's historically as important to set the stage of what happened, to acknowledge the sexual identity of who got the ball rolling before it became an avalanche. This week it mattered because we got to look at Varner as a man without a built-in bias against gay men, let alone transgender men, because he is one. So the discussion got to be about why it's wrong for anyone to out another human. As Sarah witnessed what happened, we were able to see the significance for Sarah to see people stand up to the ugliness of outing another person who is just living their life not as a transgendered man, pretending to be a gay man, as Varner implied, but as a human. Sarah watched Debbie, Ty, Andrea, and Ozzy react the way we all should, in my opinion. But I say all of that person not on the island when this occurred to feel strongly that this happened. Yes, CBS could have not chosen to show it, so I think they're culpable for the pain Zeke would feel by this being shown to millions. But they also are the ones who, I believe, God chose to help people learn this lesson. I believe that Varner may have done something hurtful that will hopefully teach many others how to live a better life by avoiding making the same mistake. Going forward in the game, Zeke may experience bias, both positive and negative. Going forward in his actual life is where he may have the hardest time. There's no way to know how people around him would have reacted if he had told them, because Varner took that experience from him. As for Varner, I really respect him for agreeing to do press this week and to face the fire for his actions. I hope my main message of learning from hard lessons comes through, and I pray we'll all treat each other with the same respect we treat our fellow Survivor superfans. All right, thanks, Skippy, for that message. Up next, we have an audio clip from Aaron.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy. Hello, Survivor fans. This is Aaron, formerly from Busan, South Korea, and I'm currently now in New Albany, Ohio. After the episode ended, I had no words, and I don't know if I still have any more right now. It was very, I can't words right now. I think seeing that was like seeing one of my actual nightmares playing out on screen. When he first mentioned it, I actually thought he was lying. I thought, why would you make something like that up? Like, my brain just could not process the fact, it couldn't process what was being said, what was being talked about, that this was actually happening. And I think that's the thing that I'm having trouble griping with, that this actually happened on national television. And all day the next day, and even still, it's been hard for me to eat. I don't know why, of all episodes, that it would be that one, this one, that would affect me this much, but I guess it did. What I can say is that I've just been overwhelmed by the love and the dialogue that has now come out about this. I think this is a conversation that we do need to have, but it really did sort of take me out of the game. And I could relate to both of them on both sides. I know there have been times in which I have said something and I've immediately regretted it, and I've had to live with that, like Varner, or I've been on the receiving end, like Zeke, and I've had to process everything that's happening, never forget, but learn to forgive and move on and use it as a moment of positivity. And yeah, I'm just, I really hope that this season doesn't become engulfed by this one episode, and I hope that, each week we've had something new to talk about. I never thought that we'd have things to talk about, but I guess we do. That's what we've had. My brain is, I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say about this, because it's just been something that's been on my mind. And hopefully by hearing everybody else, it'll help me to process this on my own and sort of deal with my own stuff. So, this did not go how I planned. I probably should not have done a voice thing, but you know what? We're just going to go with it. So I hope everybody has a good week, and I'll see you for the merge. Bye.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm really glad you did call in. Next up, we got a call from BranondA.
What's up, Joanna, Stacy, and Survivor fans? This is Brandon from Cleveland. I'm calling to give my feedback about this last episode real quick. Just want to say, last couple of weeks of the feedback show have been terrific. Sorry I haven't been able to call in. Been a busy few weekends, and they kind of just slipped my mind. I meant to call in for both of those feedback shows, as I really enjoyed those episodes and wanted to comment. But, it just ended up slipping my mind. And, man, I'm going to miss Sandra a lot. So she's one of my favorites ever. But as far as this episode, wow, I definitely don't know where to begin when it comes to this one. I will say this episode definitely, it did get to me, and I shed a couple tears myself everything that happened with that tribal council. Brad Culpepper and Sari and Aubrey, they may have not have got me at the beginning of the episode, but by the end, definitely got me. I just feel really bad for Zeke. I guess my experience is a little like Sarah's, maybe not as conservative. I kind of the way she was describing herself, but at the same time, yeah, I really felt horrible. I think it's awful what Jeff did. At the same time, though, I think it was wrong. I think it was way out of line. But I don't want there to be a mass persecution of him either, just for the simple fact that I do believe he was sincere with his apology, and I don't think adding, I guess, to his misery is going to help Zeke in any way. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Long as I feel like Jeff feels accountable for what he did, and he truly feels accountable for what he did, and trying to make amends for that by the way he lives his life and his interactions with the LGBT community going forward, or with Zeke himself. I hope that's enough as far as, I guess, people dealing with him and what he did in general. I guess I don't have too much more to say when it comes to the episode. I think everything else would be trivial. And also, I also like to thank Jody for being kind of vulnerable last week and expressing some of the things that was going on in her life. Definitely can relate when it comes to something like that. And so I think it was great that was put out there so that stigma is not attached with depression and things of that nature. And I think it's good to create awareness and things of that nature. So I will talk to everybody next week. Anxious to hear what everybody else has to say. Peace.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to have you back. Next up, we got an email from Sarah from Jamul. Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Wow, I just finished this week's episode, and I'm experiencing a bit of delayed onset shock. I usually wait to send feedback until after listening to your recap and tomorrow's interview, but I felt like sending this right away. As someone who is an advocate for trans rights and an ally for the LGBTQ community, my heart broke for Zeke tonight. What Varner chose to do tonight was stupid, terrible, appalling, and I hope everyone can agree on that. There's no scenario anyone could ever come up with to justify someone outing another person, but it was especially shocking to see it happen on national television. That's all the time I'll give to Varner's poor judgment. I'm sure he has beaten himself up enough and regrets it more than we can imagine. The two moments I am choosing to focus on tonight are the reaction from Zeke's tribe, Jeff Probst included, and the amazing way in which Zeke himself handled what happened. In a time when awful things like the shooting at Pult's nightclub and bathroom laws are making headlines, it was touching to see the response of everyone at Tribal tonight. These are just ordinary people from different walks of life coming together in support of their friend and tribe mate. I was especially moved by what Sarah said because I believe exposure and positive experiences like getting to know Zeke as a person first and foremost, rather than harboring preconceived ideas of what a trans person is, create compassion and empathy. I'm hopeful that her reaction mirrors what many viewers are feeling now, too. Perhaps this will inspire positive conversation. Zeke is quite the wordsmith and has this cool, endearing charm about him. I've been a fan of him since that confessional last season when he made fire for the first time, and I was excited to see him back again this season. The way in which he responded to what happened at Tribal tonight was a thing of beauty. He might not consider himself a role model or consider himself role model material, but I sure do. Thanks for all you do. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts about this episode. I'll try to get back to silly feedback next week. Bring on the merge. P.S. If you or anyone else is interested in more information about transgender people, you can check out www.transequality.org for some facts and resources. Thanks, Sarah. Definitely going to check that out, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Really appreciate that. Next up, we got a call from Samantha.
This is Samantha, a.k.a. Survivor Rocks from Texas. I'm still loving the challenges, and Ozzy rocks. He definitely hasn't lost his touch, and he is definitely still got it. The pizza reward was awesome. I'm still not on the Brad Culpepper bandwagon, but maybe it will work out for my girl Sari and Aubrey. It was heartfelt and sincere though. Now, on to what we are all talking about. I, as a fan, support both Varner and Zeke, and I don't think any different of them. I like both these castaways, and I know that ill intent was not on purpose with Varner. He made a mistake, and he's living with it. What he should have said was, we don't know him as a player, talking about Zeke. He comes into this season of Game Changers as the unknown player. Why is he here? He's very smart and strategic in this game. He's a bigger threat than me. We don't know his game, but we know each other's somewhat, and that can be deceiving. Is Zeke a Russell Hant? I would have aimed to vote out Zeke and not gun for Ozzy, since it was clear that Zeke was not on his side. I don't think that he meant for it to come off the way he did, and Varner did not stop and think. His mind was clouded. It was definitely a foot in the mouth situation. I know that he is very sorry, and he has had counseling. He made a huge mistake, and he knows it, and he's struggling with it. I ask Survivor fans to forgive and give both of them the support they need. And next time on Survivor, it's time to merge.
Thanks, Samantha. Next up, we got a call from Sandi, which is fantastic to hear from her again.
Hello, Survivor family. This is Sandi from Atlanta. I know I haven't called in, been a little busy finishing up chemo. I have no news yet on the results, but I will let you know when I do. But thank you for the prayers and all the good thoughts. It's what's been keeping me positive through this whole thing. Okay, Survivor. First of all, I have to say that I don't think there was any malice in Jeff Varner's comments at Tribal. I think he just had diarrhea of the mouth, as I have had many a time. Now, none of mine were on national television, but that doesn't mean that I'm precluded, because I could do something like that on public television. So he's had 10 months. I know he's had 10 months of struggling, and I just heard that he lost his job. I hate that. I don't think that just because somebody has diarrhea of the mouth one time that they should lose their job. Then I want to know why, in all this flurry of interviews and whatnot and wherefore, why Jeff and Zeke are not together doing some of these. Is that a CBS decision? Is that a Zeke position? I don't know. Just came into my mind. The rest of the season, I think, has been just fantastic. Of course, after about JT and Malcolm getting voted off, I think I would have voluntarily quit so I could go on the trips with them. What a bummer. Okay, otherwise the season's been awesome. There's some nights where I can't stay up to watch it, so I have to watch it later. But your podcast is always the first thing I listen to, and it just makes me smile. So anyway, that's all from me. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Sandi, we're so glad that you got your energy back so that you can call into the podcast like that, and we're continuing to keep good thoughts for you.
Absolutely. We love you, girl.
I think it was in Variety. Is that where the interview was, the article that Zeke wrote? Yeah, it's a magazine. I'll include a link to it. It's really well written.
It is so well written. It is so impressive. It'll
give you some more insight. But I think to answer your question about why they weren't doing things together is that in that article, rather, the essay, whatever it is that Zeke wrote, he talked about needing to forgive him from afar from right now. He just didn't want to be around him, which, again, that's him handling things, as far as I'm concerned, really well. I'm still with Jill from the Outback. Anyway.
You can be forgiving and friendly with someone without being best friends.
Yeah. So CBS had nothing to do with that. CBS has done, some other folks will talk about it, but they've done coordination for how to handle all this. And I don't think, like I was worrying, I think in the recap that they didn't give him a chance to not air this, but they did talk it out, and they've been planning how to handle this for months now, and working together with GLAAD. And so I think they probably did handle it in the best way they could, given what we're dealing with. And
I posted something on the Facebook page, and if you haven't seen it, it's Zeke's appearance on The Talk. Awesome. He was awesome.
Yeah, we'll include that in the links too. Okay, thanks. Great again to hear from you, Sandi. Good job. Next up, we got an email from Bonnie in North Carolina.
This is Bonnie from the Blue Ridge state of North Carolina. First time I've responded, but a long-time listener. Welcome.
Yeah.
I really enjoy you two in this podcast. I'm so old I have to listen first, then watch the show, or else I'll miss a lot of important things. A previous fan had wondered where to get all the seasons. They're now on CBS. They have every episode of every season. Like you, Stacy, I believe in paying extra to skip the ads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm stunned and shocked, but feel like there's no doubt who's going to take home the win. Why, oh why, Varner, would you spoil this season? I'm totally numbed. Thanks for all you do, Joanne and Stacy. Can't wait to hear others' thoughts on the matter. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, I'm curious. It's in terms of what it means for Zeke's game going forward. We'll have to wait and see, but it could certainly derail your ability to think about the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to circle on it because now this thing is overshadowing him. He knows he's got to deal with it when he gets back.
Well, and I would assume it's really shaken him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot to deal with everything else.
On top of being out
You're
there.
You're dealing with not
under
only
extreme
the
conditions,
food, the lack of, sleep, rest, everything, and strategizing, playing the strategic game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got to deal with this on top of it.
Really tough.
Whoa. So I think it could go either way myself, that it could buy him some time. People could rally around him. But also, again, like has already been said, I don't know that they'd want to sit next to him at Final Three.
Tough one for sure. Thanks again, Bonnie. Good job on your first feedback. Next up, we got a call from Rhonda.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Hi, everyone. It's Rhonda from Portland. I don't really have a lot to say. I just wanted to call in and acknowledge what a difficult week it's been. Kudos to you guys for doing a good job during a difficult situation. And say hi to everyone and say a lot, so Stacy has to edit it out. This is a time that I feel at this point everything that can be said either has been said or is maybe not appropriate to be said by someone like me. So that's it on that subject. I don't know what is going to happen about the gameplay last week or the show last week that didn't involve the badness. I am coming to terms with the fact that Brad Culpepper is getting a winner's edit, and I am not happy about that. And that Sari is getting a purple edit, and I am not happy about that either. But she's still there. She has made the merge at this point. She may go out next week, but she's there, so there's something to be celebrated about. She's not completely purple, but she's pretty darn purple. I think there are a few too many things going on as far as twists and advantages, and I would love a Survivor old school season where there was absolutely nothing, no idols, no nothing. And I know that makes me sound really old, but I don't care because I kind of am. And I don't know what's going to happen next time, but if they wanted to vote out Ty, I would be A-okay with that. And that's all I have to say. And I'm looking forward to hear some insightful comments, and I'll chat with you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rhonda. I left at least one in there for you. Next up, we got an email from Michael in Kansas. I'm writing in while this episode's still fresh in my mind and my emotions are strong. Jeff Varner opened his mouth and inserted his foot. I'm not defending his actions, but he did it in front of a select few people. He didn't out Zeke to the world. Jeff Probst and CBS did. They should have left all that out. Varner was fighting for his survival in a game where he is tired, hungry, and trying to stay in the game. CBS could have gone to vote. Varner would have gotten voted out, and the show would have ended with no one being the wiser. Instead, we get to watch the completely unnecessary airing of Zeke's secrets, Varner being vilified, and CBS enjoying their ratings. I've never wanted to quit watching a show before now, but I am sick to my stomach. I don't want to watch the live finale, where I'm sure Varner will again be vilified, and Zeke will have to sit there acting as if he's fine with everyone enjoying their performance. It was all totally unnecessary. That was Zeke's story to share, not CBS's. But only one person is going to take the fall, and that's not fair either. I'm so disappointed that my favorite show didn't show more class. Thanks, Michael. I totally understand that. It's an interesting position to be in, because I've looked at that NDA that they signed before, an early version of one, and Zeke gave away that right, just as everyone else who's ever been on that show. They signed that away so that whatever it is, you just don't think, like Zeke said, he never thought this was going to happen.
Even the press on site.
Yeah, you don't think that this, right, has to sign NDAs and things like that. And so, yeah, likewise with Varner. And it's certainly been something that I've thought about in the past, that when you make a choice that puts you down the villain path, you could end up being in a really bad position publicly because of it. And I don't think Varner intentionally went that way. I'm not trying to say that, but boy, things are going to they're bad now, and I think they're only getting rougher because the national and international press, non-CBS stations have picked up the story, right? And it's being talked about everywhere, so it's like going to continue to escalate for a little while for him. But I don't think CBS is at fault the same way that you're thinking they are, Michael. I think they could have, look at it this way. What if they had played it up? Because they could have done that for higher ratings. Just like when we've been disappointed before when they were talking about, like when Caleb got in such dire medical condition and they played it like his heart had stopped. Some of that is it's business, and sometimes business is pretty despicable from that perspective. But they didn't do that with this, so maybe that'll help balance some of it out for you. But I know what you're saying, like Joanne mentioned at the top in the intro. We've had that feeling before, like if they can stayed in this path in the particular vein, it would be something that we would have to look hard at maybe moving away from. I don't necessarily think that's the case, and when you look at how they're working in support of Zeke, I think you might be able to see it a little differently, but I do understand where you're coming from. It's one of the first
certainly
things
understand the disappointment.
Yeah, it was one of the first things I wondered about myself when we were talking about it on the recap, because we know they've gone down that kind of path before, but I don't think they did it with this one. I'm really willing to give them more of a benefit of a doubt. But thank you for that. We appreciate you sharing your perspective. Thanks, Michael. Next up, we got a call from Myra.
Hi, Joanna Stacy. This is Myra from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And wow, that was a heck of an episode and a heck of a tribal council. I feel bad for both Zeke and Varner. I mean, there were no winners in that conversation. But I don't know. It kind of feels like Probst and company really was exploiting it. I mean, they knew Zeke was transgender. He came out before Millennials versus Gen X last year as a transgender male. So I kind of get the feeling that Probst has been wanting this sort of drama to come up with Zeke. I think that's why they cast him again in back-to-back seasons. But I think the uncomfortableness of that drama when it actually did happen is probably why Probst didn't really hype Zeke at all coming into the season. I mean, you heard all about Michaela, the game changer, but you didn't hear anything about Zeke, and that kind of bothered me. But I think now we know why we didn't hear a lot about Zeke. Also, the whole breakdown of the Mono tribe, especially with Brad, finally realizing what Monica has gone through. I mean, you never really understand the experience unless you have experienced it. I, being a veteran, get that a lot when I try to explain to anybody what it was like being deployed in Iraq. Unless you've been deployed to a war zone, you don't get it. And I feel that's kind of the same way that we are about Survivor, because unless you've actually done the game, you don't get it, because it's such a different experience. It's such a life-changing experience. So I totally get why everybody on that tribe broke down. But coming up next week, the merge. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Seeing how some of these people work together. Is Ozzy going to backstab Sari because he's still is kind of pissed off at her about what happened from season 16 back in Micronesia? Is Brad Culpepper going to have an alpha male alliance with him, Ozzy, Troy Zan? Don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And now I have to pick a brand new USB because my USB, the Queen Sandra, is gone. Oh, I'm going to have to pick a new one. That's going to be tough. Here's hoping to a lot more comfortable survivors from here on out. Take care, you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Myra. I guess another thing to add to that, I probably should have waited until I did Michael and Myra, but and there's a few other folks that are concerned with how CBS has handled it. Like we said, we understand. The other thing is that it could be such a big landmine for them. I'm sure that they've struggled with how to handle it because they could end up being vilified too, right? And they're certainly that's going to be the perception that some people have. So I don't think they were being exploitive, not in this context. Next up, we got email from Mikeybear in New Jersey.
Hi guys. Wow. I don't know how I can put all of my feelings and emotions about last night's episode into words, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to just start off by saying I don't think Varner is evil. I don't agree with what he did. It showed a serious lapse of judgment. It's something I tell my wife, who has a bad temper, all the time. Think before you speak, because once you say it, it's out there. You can't take it back. I think Varner got caught up in the game, and unfortunately, I think he realized what he did only after he said it and saw the reaction of his tribe mates in Probst. Unfortunately, he's got to live with the consequences of his actions, and I can only hope that he can find some peace, because while he took place a year ago, he now has to relive this with the airing of the episode last night and his interviews today. Zeke handled everything with class. I think having the full support of his tribe mates helped tremendously. And from what I've seen via social media, he has a tremendous amount of support behind him. Sarah's feelings on the subject were beautiful. Enough said. It was a crazy tribal council. Shocking, uncomfortable, beautiful. I'm not sure how often I'll be able to watch it, but it ended nicely. Now on to more fun subjects. I'm pleasantly surprised that Debbie was able to keep her secret about exile, at least for this episode. Let's see if she can avoid spilling the beans in the next episode. The reward challenge was cool, but I was really impressed with Mana's comeback in the immunity challenge, and from the looks of things, it was all Haley. That's true.
Yeah.
When I went back and looked, that's who it was.
Yeah.
I was so surprised. I thought it was Sari for
I'm with
some
Mikey
reason.
Bear. It's a shock to me.
I know.
Out.
So he said, not that she's not intelligent. Heck, anyone who's studying to become an attorney has to have some smarts in them. But she's never been known for being a challenge threat or even an impressive challenge contributor. But here she really stepped up. And the irony of the word being metamorphosis, talk about freaky. I love that Ozzy and Troyzan made the merge, and I can only hope that one of them goes on an immunity challenge run so that they can stick around. We'll see what happens next week. It's been a great season thus far, and I can only hope that the second half of the season is as good as the first has been. All right. Thanks, Mikeybear.
Yeah, thanks.
Up next, we have an audio clip from Shay.
Hey, guys. This is Shay. I'm in Florida on vacation at my grandparents' house, and Survivor is the only show that I have stopped to watch in the last week, and I'm so glad that I did. I am shocked and moved and then shocked again. It's the second time in a row where I had so many thoughts about the first part of the game, only to lose all of those thoughts due to tribal council being all that matters. I mean, yeah, there was pizza, Hawaiian pizza. Woohoo! Excited about that. But wow, tribal. I mean, I really didn't expect Varner to do that. I mean, I understand wanting to win. I really do. And I was really excited and anxious to see all that he would pull out of his hat. But I wasn't expecting that. And I was shocked by that and then moved immediately by the compassion of everyone else to understand immediately that that was not okay to do. And then I was moved by how well Zeke handled it. I mean, he really could have just flipped his lid, and he just took the time to soak it in think about what he needed to say and said it with poise. And, of course, I now hope he wins. I mean, he was one of the 3 people I hoped might win anyway. And I hated to see Varner go out like that. I mean, now that's going to be his legacy. I love Varner, and he's a hoot. And I was wanting to see him fight for his chance and either get it or not. But I didn't want to see him not even need to have a vote, just get out. I mean, he did it to himself, but wow, what an episode. This show, every time you think they've done everything they can possibly do, every time you think there's no way they could change up one of the challenges and make it different, or it's never ending. If you can put the same people in every season, and it's still going to be a different show. It's life happening and evolving as you watch it. I don't know. It's the best show on the planet. And I cannot wait to hear what everybody else has to say. I just can't wait. Wow. Okay, gonna rewatch it now. You guys have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Shay. Next up, we got an email from Jay in Wisconsin. Dear Joanne and Stacy and all Survivor fans, my father taught me that when something makes you mad to wait 24 hours before reacting. Well, it's been 48 hours, and here's my reaction. As a parent of an adult transgender child, I would like to address Varner's dropping the Moab, mother of all bombs, at Tribal Council. Was it a dumb move? Yes. Was it outside the bounds of the game? Definitely. Was it done with an intent to harm? No. Is Varner sorry? Yes. We now have a cloud hanging over the rest of the season, insomuch that the other players may be reluctant to vote Zeke out for fear of being labeled prejudicial, or does Zeke get targeted because if he makes it to the end, he has a story to win? Either way, the game is changed for Zeke. He's no longer just Zeke the Survivor player. Closing thoughts, it is never okay to out anyone. The conversation has started. CBS did a fair job handling this topic. Let's all stop the hate and live in peace together. Thanks, Jay.
That's good advice.
That's a good message. I struggle because I'm definitely find myself not as forgiving or understanding as some of the other fans in terms of how they're responding, but I certainly appreciate that message. Next up, we got a call from Sophie.
Hi, this is Sophie from Texas. I really loved this episode. I thought the challenges were fantastic. There was a bit of everything, and there was like a lot of water challenges, and Ozzy did great holding his breath and diving down all 3 times. So I was sad when I thought that he would be sent home, especially because Varner's pitch, the first half was really good, and I really thought that he actually had convinced his team to vote against Ozzy. Later he sort of put his foot in his mouth and sort of said the wrong things. I'm not too upset about what Varner did, but the way he did it was wrong. But I don't really want to talk about that. But I've heard when he called in, and I do think that he is sincerely sorry. It's just very unfortunate. Yeah, everybody was shocked, I think. I didn't suspect anything. But I want to talk about the other part of the game. I thought Brad was playing so well, and I really did enjoy watching him bond with Aubrey and Suri. Hopefully they can go far. It was also very funny to see Michaela, for once, expressionless, really not emotional or bonding with the rest of her homesick team. That was funny. Also, I don't know, I think 10 pizzas for them was a lot, and I would have wanted to just give at least 1 for the other tribe. Maybe that wouldn't have won me any points, though. And when Ozzy opened the pizza box, I really thought that he had seen a hidden clue or something, because, I don't know, I thought when he looked and he was looking at the pizza for a long time, I really thought something was going to happen. Yeah, it was just very unfortunate, and Debbie said it when she said that she was prepared to be absolutely shocked at Tribal Council, and I think everybody was. It was sad, but it was a great game, and I love Survivor still. I wish that they had sort of just cut it out and we didn't even get to see all of that stuff. That's just my opinion. I know people think it should be spoken about, but my view is I prefer to sort of know. I don't really like sort of not knowing things. So, yeah, I think it's fair that everybody knows about somebody's life if they're making such a big change. But yeah, Zeke was very eloquent and handled it okay. So that's it. Thanks for the interviews and all you do. Bye.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing your perspective.
Yeah, Sari had I thought, an interesting extra video, on All Access.
What did she say?
She was basically talking about Brad and, how how she did really feel that way. And
made a connection.
Listening to him talk about Monica and how much he loved her.
Changed how she thought of him.
Yeah, it totally did. And so I thought, oh, okay, all right. We see the other side. She was sincere. So that answered a question for me.
Yep. Thanks again, Sophie. Next up, we got an email from Beth in Virginia.
This is my first time writing this season. Well, welcome back. I'm sure you will have many contributors this week, so I'll try to keep it brief. What an episode. I'm sure many others will be able to express their thoughts on what happened at Tribal Council much more eloquently than I can, so I will simply echo what I've heard in various places. That as awful as this Tribal Council was, it was truly uplifting to see the rest of the tribe support Zeke without giving in to the hatred and inaccurate stereotypes that Varner was perpetrating or perpetuating. And how great is Zeke for handling all of the public fallout, for a lack of better term, in the way that he has. I hope he is able to return to the life that he wants after the immediate media frenzy passes. I also have sympathy for Varner and hope that he is able to recover and bring about something positive from this experience. What I would like to discuss is something unrelated Varner said in his interview with you. He mentioned the immunity idol that is hidden on the Tribal Council set, and that if he had turned left instead of right, or perhaps it was the other way around, that he might have found it. I rewatched Tribal Council again after listening to the interview to see if I could spot where the hidden immunity idol might be, but didn't notice anything. Did you two do the same? And if so, did you spot anything that you think it might be, or where you think it could be? I hope to see this idol come into play at some point this season. I have so many questions for how it might work. Does a contestant grab it while walking in, while going to the voting booth, while in the voting booth, while simply sitting and talking with Probst? And would they be able to get it in a way that keeps it hidden from the others, or would it be super obvious to everyone? Anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts on this idol, and if you think we will get to see it used this season. Thanks for a wonderful podcast and giving me something to look forward to every Thursday and Saturday. All right. Thank you, Beth. I actually do think we will see that because they mentioned it. So
yeah, and we picked up on it too, that he had mentioned that in the course of it. So we were wondering about that. About it being, if they were referring to the tribe, if he was referring to the one at Tribal Council, there is an extra video where he searching for the idol back at camp.
He was following the goats up the hill, or wasn't he? Yeah,
and they do a couple cuts where it wasn't clear to me. Are they just showing the goat, or are they showing where a clue may be? Are they just showing the goats, or are they showing where the idol may actually be? And I didn't know if he was perhaps referring to that extra clip with him searching for the idol. So I guess in the end, we don't have any answers for you, Beth. But
no, but what I thought when he said that, my mind went to, then someone must have told him either where JT told him where he hid the idol up there, or where he found the clue to the idol. Or maybe Ty at some point, or, that he has found out since. It doesn't mean it was, I don't think it was in the show. I'm sure it was after he left. But, that he found out from someone else that where it was, and that he was very close. If he'd just turned one way instead of the other, he would have seen it.
He did seem to be in that extra video with him searching for the idol. He did seem to be up the hill quite a bit more than because he was having a tough time navigating, just like JT said someone going up there might, and that's why he didn't think Varner could get up there.
Yeah, JT specifically said he didn't think Varner or Sandra could get up there. So
it might have been that, Beth. That's the other thing. So if you get a chance, you can check that out.
But I do think they will show it at some point, and I'm curious about that, too.
And the other answer to Beth's question is, I think it's in when they go to vote. I think it's in there. That seems like the most logical place to put it. And there's still time to act on it if you get it while you're in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone will find it, but I bet you they'll show it to us, and it's going to be in there at some point.
Yeah, I think they'll show it. Whether they find it or not, they'll show us.
They'll give one of those jump cut flashes on it. Thanks again, Beth. Next up, we got a call from Victoria.
Hi, Jody and Stacey. This is Victoria from Maryland. It's been a while since I've actually remembered to do an email. I just had to call in just to say how furious I was watching today's Survivor. It was very heartbreaking. Had me in tears. I want to believe that Varner is truly sorry. It seems like it's very sincere, and from his perspective, I can understand what he was talking about, but the look on Zeke's face was very heartbreaking. It saddened me beyond belief. I could not believe that this happened on Survivor. This is really why I love watching the game, because it just shows real life. But I just wanted to add my 2 cents on how frustrated I was, but yet how resilient Zeke handled that, and I was surprised that he didn't go off. But I had the same frustrations as Andrea, as Ty. Even I cannot believe I actually agreed with Debbie. This one hurt me, guys. This one hurt me. But hopefully I'll remember to do feedback next week, and hopefully it'll be a girls on boys type of tribal thing going on with the merge. But talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks, Victoria. Great to hear from you again. So Victoria is advocating for a woman's alliance to take control at the merge. Well, it's certainly possible.
They have the numbers.
The only thing that makes me think that may not happen is how we've heard these references to the strengths of the differences between the two tribes. Just which tribe you ended up being on in the beginning, and how that's had an impact, and how you can see it in the vote-off patterns.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who Andrea really does have alliances with.
And then the other thing is, it's notoriously difficult for a women's alliance to hold together. Certainly with millennials versus Gen X, we saw one. All right,
be careful now.
We saw one that couldn't make it 24 hours. So that's the only other reason that I can think of, Victoria, why we might not actually see that come to be. But it'll certainly be on our minds when we go to watch the next episode. Next up, we have an email from Stephanie in Michigan. Hi, Joanne and Stacey. Long-time listener, first-time caller or emailer. Thanks so much for all that you do. I love your podcast so much. As a mom, I can be a bit watching Survivor and sometimes miss something subtle or not so subtle unfolding in the game. No worries. I know I'll catch it all and more when I listen to your top-notch recap.
Thank you.
This week's episode was titled, What Happens at Exile Stays at Exile. That was an obvious Debbie quote before I even hit play. Yet when I got to the end of Tribal Council, I couldn't help but wonder if it was used by production to allude to Varner outing Zeke. That information clearly did not stay in his head. All my love to Zeke. He is Zeke the survivor and always will be. I'm disappointed things happened like they did, but it does seem like he has received support and that some good has come out of the whole scenario. It's been a great season, and I hope Zeke does well, though I am loyal to Aubrey. Thanks again, and have a great week. Thank you, Stephanie. Great to hear from you. Good job.
Well, and while I'm thinking about it, I also wanted to point out that that they have told, Zeke and Varner have said that CBS has paid for counseling
ongoing
for
therapy.
Both of them all this time.
Yeah, that's good. Next up, we have a call from Marla and Sarah.
Hi, Joanne and Stacey. Hi, Survivor friends. This is Marla.
And this is Sarah.
With some thoughts. We were literally speechless after we watched Survivor the other night. Literally, I was saying, like, what? And Sarah was saying, what? So we had a lot of great conversations since that show. These are some thoughts I have. It was not a good thing by any means. However, the idea that everyone got around Zeke and supported him was something that's just really great for our world. Jeff made a giant mistake. It was hard to even listen to his press interviews because you can tell he feels horrible, as he should. And I think that was an indication of the world changing, and I know that Jeff will be part of that, and Zeke is part of that. I don't think that anyone is looking at Zeke in a particular label now. They're just saying, oh, that's something we didn't know about Zeke. Or maybe they did. I don't read anything about the show beforehand. Sarah, what did you think about Zeke when you picked him for our USB?
I thought he was nice, and I thought he could work well with other people.
Yeah, that is what you thought. Sarah commented about his social game. So we don't think Zeke is probably listening. But if he is, we want to say, we love you.
Yeah.
And if Jeff happens to listen to the Survivor Fans podcast, we want to send him some love too, because we're thinking he probably needs some right now just from making that huge mistake. I don't think I've ever made a mistake that huge, but I know I have said things that I wish I could take back many, many times in our life. Have you ever said something you wish you could take back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that probably happened to us already this morning. We hope you're all well. We hope you have a happy Easter. And Joanne and Stacy, thanks for all you do. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Hi, Survivor friends again. This is Marla. I totally forgot this thing that happened to me when I was teaching this week. I'm teaching the book Metamorphoses by Ovid right now. And when I was at work, one of my students said, oh my gosh, did you watch Survivor last night? The word metamorphosis was in there and I totally knew it. I don't know what I was prouder of, my student knowing that word or the fact that my student watches Survivor. So if she's listening right now, great job. Thanks, Joanne and Stacy, for all you do. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, too. Next up, we got an email from FD in Thailand.
Dear Joanne and Stacy, thank you for all your hard work. I managed to contribute emails on a regular basis a few seasons ago, but it has been proved impractical, though I listen every week. Let me be frank, I have never liked Varner, specifically because I recognized a level of cattiness about him. I want to talk about the aftermath as much as the incident to underline how disingenuous Varner is. He is in his round of apologies, but the nasty keeps coming through no matter how he disguises it. He frames the incident as a desperate moment. It was nothing of the sort. He stated before Tribal he would reveal a deception. He contradicts himself because he knew Zeke was transgender, though he later admitted he was unsure. So rightly or wrongly, he was willing to out Zeke for effect, which means he was hoping others would feel uncomfortable around a transgender person. This from a player who, through 2 seasons of Survivor, refused to admit he was gay. Hannah Shapiro correctly eviscerates him on Rob Has a Podcast and points out it was premeditated and what he intended to do was shame Zeke in front of others. As the incident happened, I posed Varner would have a ready excuse for outing. Well, several. On your show, he claimed Zeke's lying at Tribal set him off. This would be Zeke lying about something Varner himself had contrived to damage Zeke. He then dramatically stated that his exit, quote, was no longer about the game for me. Things had moved into a different place. There was certain devastation. It just didn't feel right I was there. Then in the very next breath relating, quote, well, there was nothing I could do to change things. I did not have an idol in my pocket. Oh, the remorse of not having an idol that is. The Rob Has a Podcast exit interview was even worse. By way of excuse, Varner relates his initial impression of Zeke was untrustworthy. He then compares him to Russell Hantz again and again. Varner spends the 10 minutes split between 2 themes. Good will come of bad. He did not mean to do this. Zeke did not deserve this. What a bad place he is in. All threaded with the idea of Zeke as Russell Hantz. Varner mentions Russell Hantz 6 times. Not once, please note, to underline that Zeke is nothing like Russell Hantz. He just lets it hang there. In my opinion, Varner is simply a nasty piece of work.
All right. Thanks, FD. I had noticed there was a certain mean streak to Varner. You can see it even in his first season. But I don't...
You mean because he started the fights, kind of arguments between the girls and...
Yeah. And he was okay with that, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So
but you liked him anyway.
I did, and I'm just going to emphasize the past tense because again, I'm not as forgiving. I don't have the compassion that some of our listeners have. That's just not something that comes quickly or easily to me after seeing that. It's one of the things I've always admired about you is your ability to. I mean, you're my balance, I think, in that regard. Your go in goodness and light and all that and live a better life perspective, and that's
learn from your journey and
exactly,
try to go forward and live happily and in love and peace.
FD hits on some things that are bugging me that I was hearing too, so I'm not like on the same page with FD necessarily, and I didn't listen to the other interview, but I think Varner's still pretty messed up in his head about all this stuff. I don't think he's found his clarity yet.
No, I'm sure he hasn't. And we know that it was a particularly bad day because we had to rearrange things because of that. And
he got to a point where he needed a break.
He had to take a break, and we had to, reschedule. But he hung in there, and he, showed up and
came back to do a call with us, right?
Yeah. And CBS was very kind and
he
rearranging
certainly didn't have
things.
to do that. We've been passed over before, so
and we I just want to mention this, though I know that Stacy probably didn't want me to, but we did. Drew mentioned something about would have liked to have heard other things for him to explain. We did try that, Drew, and he was just not able to do it. He tried, and he just wasn't, and so we went with that and allowed him to do what he needed to do.
To let him...
Because he asked us to, and...
that's why we stayed away from the other
because I really wanted to veer away from that and only touch on it briefly, but that was not the way it worked out, and so we went with the flow.
Yeah.
And I do think he did the best he could under the circumstances, and especially now knowing that it came out that he was also fired that day too, and so he was still being hit with things pretty
I think
hard,
the wave was still building. I'm not even sure it's crested on him yet.
I feel that way too. So, again, that touches my compassion.
Thanks, FD. And speaking of Drew, which we hadn't heard.
I didn't do that deliberately, actually. But,
let's check in with Drew and the Hooligans.
Hi, everyone. This is Drew and what's your name? No, what's your name? Here for some quick feedback this morning. Yeah, I know that there's going to be a lot said, but I just wanted to send something quick. As an episode, I thought that there was some interesting dynamics in the new tribes, and the challenges were fun. I thought that, of course, Ozzy was amazing in the first one, and I thought that pizza looked awesome because I think that if I were out there, that's the number one thing I would want to eat, pizza, because that's the number one thing I want to eat at home, too. So, yeah, I thought that was a good reward. And the other challenge, what even was it? Oh, okay, metamorphosis. Yeah, I thought that was a strange word choice, first of all, but they've done things like that before. But I also think that my new favorite people in this game, well, I shouldn't say that. I will say that what I like to see developing is the bromance between Brad and Troy, and I never, ever thought that I would say that about them, but it's just such a... I mean, it's sort of expected when you think about the type of guys those two guys are, but then you also wouldn't have expected it because, I don't know, it just seems like there were so many different other ways, but I guess they got to stick together because they are the only two guys on there, but I think they could pull something off pretty well as long as they can play cool and lay low and stick together. Also, I have to say that bringing books down this morning for these two was a brilliant idea because, so far at least, they're just calmly and happily reading. So, also, I thought that Debbie was pretty smart how she played it cool after Exile Island. I wonder how long that will last. It doesn't seem like Exile is going to keep happening in that way, so she might be able to keep that secret for a while. I also thought that Zeke and Jeff had something going there up until Jeff started to get all freaked out and paranoid and hearing things and started, flailing. Like, he just started flailing, I think. I pictured him like a fish in the very, very, very shallowest of water, just like flailing around. And then, of course, that leads to Tribal Council, which, at this point, the less said about that, the better. I think it's getting talked about everywhere at every second of every day. So I will say that the winner of the week is Ozzy for sitting back and just letting things happen because he knew he was going to be just fine after that happened. And he is a great asset to that tribe. Loser of the week, Jeff, of course. Of course it's Jeff for lots of reasons, but as far as gameplay goes, he was doing great. He was selling people, he was winning people over until in 1 second he changed his entire game and everything that everyone will ever remember him for. So that was crazy. In hindsight, it seems like it was almost being built up by the editors. Anyway, there's a lot to say, so like I said, the less said the better, but I'm sure it will be covered in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people. So good job with how you handled the interview. Like I said on Facebook, I wish it had been a little bit more about gameplay, but I know that he has his air to clear. And I also will say that I actually had the vote out point right. I wondered if we were going to get it this time because it wasn't a traditional vote, but I guess it was a vote. So I guess that's all there is to say. Hey guys, say bye. Bye. Say bye, babe. Bye, baby. Bye, baby. Okay, that's all we got. Talk to you guys later. I can't wait for this cycle to be over so we can get back to Survivor. Bye.
Thanks, Drew.
Kids are so awesome.
Yeah. Next up, we got a call from Kenny.
Hey guys, it's Kenny from Dallas. That was quite an episode. Before I mentioned the tribal council, it seems that Brad Culpepper is getting an unusually sympathetic edit, which kind of worries me because I'm not rooting for him. Well, that was the mother of all tribal councils, I guess. I applaud Jeff for letting the tribe take the lead and react to Varner's miserable outing of Zeke. I think Brooks handled the situation well. I think Zeke handled the situation really well. And Jeff Probst did not let Jeff Varner get away with being duplicitous and saying he knew that everyone knew that Zeke was out, but yet he had to point it out himself. What if Varner added the immunity idol and said, I know everyone wants me out, I'm going to play it? I still think he would have been thrown out of the game. I think that he would have crossed the line of the rules of the game, where if he said, I have 2 idols like I had, Probst would have said, sorry, but you're out. I have to believe that's what would have happened. Truly dramatic episode, interesting, and be interested to see what happens to my big Zeke as time goes on. Take care, guys. Bye.
Oh, Kenny, you sound rough, but I hope you're feeling better, or I hope you don't feel as bad as you sound.
Yeah.
That's an interesting twist. Leave it to Kenny to come up with a different question to ask there, huh? The idea that he would have had an idol, and you got that extra video with him searching, how that could have ended up playing in the context of the game. I still think it would have poisoned Varner's game.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't. It could have saved him for a night, because I think they might have honored it, Kenny. I think they might have had to in the context of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that being a game show and the rules that they try to run it by in that regard. But it would have been sure death to his overall game.
Well, and, Ty was probably sitting there with an idol in each pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that after he was over being angry and he felt that Varner was sincere in his apology, he was comforting him while Varner was crying and Zeke was talking. Ty was comforting him, but not to the point where he would have given him an idol.
Yeah, thank goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Kenny. Hope you feel better. Next up, we got an email from Tina in Virginia. Hi, Joanne, Stacy, and Survivor fans. My title for this feedback is Shades of Grey in Sandra and Varner. I was so depressed after Sandra and Varner lost. 2 great personalities gone in 2 weeks. In my depression, I lost track of the days, lost my appetite, couldn't go to work, and my boyfriend almost left after saying I was being overly dramatic and taking Survivor too seriously. He looked at me straight in the eye and said, what if Varner's acting and outed Zeke to bring attention to discrimination against transgender people? What if he and the producers knew it would be great TV and had a good theme for the show? What if Varner cares so much for transgender people that he was willing to look like the bad guy to make a point about issues in the transgender community? What if he isn't the bad guy you think he is? He had me thinking for a moment, and then I realized he was just plain wrong, because I'm always right. I know someone else who thinks that last way.
Well, it's usually true.
Anyway, if I can make a quick mention about Sandra. In interviews, Sandra said that she did not like to talk to Ty much because she could not understand him, and she always had to repeat herself. Maybe if she had put aside her frustration with his lack of English skills, she could have chatted with him, and maybe he would have told her he had 2 idols. I think asking him to repeat himself would have been worth another $1 million, and more importantly, show you to be a tolerant person. He does seem isolated and alone, and Sandra seems so self-absorbed about not liking to talk to people who don't speak English well. He is a refugee, an immigrant, and a little kindness would have gone a long way in my mind. Well, my two heroes teach me two things: be nicer to transgender people and refugees. And maybe there are no black and white people, only shades of gray. All the best, Survivor fans, including Joanne and Stacy. Thanks, Tina. I like how you tied that together at the end there. Next up, we got a quick call from Joel.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy, it's Joel from Tampa. Just one quick observation. And the preview for next week, when they're all merged together and everyone hugs together, boy, Survivor fan favorite, Sierra Dawn Thomas, is one tall lady. Her head stuck up above that entire group. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Joel. This scene did stand out. It was almost comical. And I think the camera is coming from a lower angle, so it seems even more exaggerated how tall she is there. Way to pick up on some humor in that episode, Joel. Next up, we got a call from Krista.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. Hey, Survivor fans. This is Krista from the East Bay. I just finished the episode, and wow. I mean, real life just came at us on Survivor, which, it's not what I watch the show for, but it's definitely a part of the show. As a member of the LGBT community, I was really shocked at what Jeff Varner did, especially being part of the community as well. I mean, I knew that Zeke was trans from, there was stuff online, he was part of a article in his college newspaper profiling trans people, but he never talked about it on the show. I mean, I think it's also especially strange. Jeff never mentioned being gay until this season. He spent 2 seasons not talking about his sexuality either. And I'm just really sad that he did that. I'm sad for Zeke, and I'm sad for Jeff. You could tell that he realized pretty much immediately what a bad decision that was. And I was glad for the tribe's reaction, just how immediately condemned he was. It just doesn't, strategically, it just didn't make any sense, what his goal was. It just didn't really make any sense. It really bums me out, because I always loved Jeff Varner, So it was just it was just really terrible. But I thought that the show handled it well. I thought that Jeff Probst did a good job. I really liked how all of the tribe reacted with, immediate condemnation. There are things in the game and there are things out of the game. And if Zeke wanted to talk about being trans, he could have done that. And Jeff just forced it out there. Beyond that, excited for the merge. I'm glad that Aubrey and Suri seem to have found a place in an alliance. So I like both of them. So I'm glad for that. In terms of next week, I guess I would put Ozzy and Michaela probably in the biggest danger as the merge boot. Seems like both of them would be good. Merge boots don't seem like Michaela doesn't seem like she's part of an alliance. Ozzy is the obvious one if he doesn't win immunity. Anyway, it was tough. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Krista. We appreciate you making the effort to call in. Next up, we got an email from Jody in Brisbane.
Hi, Survivor family. Years ago, when I was 10 and my sister was 7, we were on a holiday and decided to get up and go swimming in our nighties. Before our parents got up, and not knowing which end was the deep end, we decided the best course of action was to jump in the middle. I was a good swimmer. My sister was not. She was in trouble soon after hitting the water and was suddenly dragging me down. She loved me, but her instinct was to survive, and she nearly drowned me doing it. Zeke can swim. Varner cannot. It's his 3rd time at the rodeo, and he was so incredibly desperate to make that merge. He grabbed onto Zeke and pushed his head under the water. What I want to know is, as a gay man, I would assume he would never out another gay man. Why is trans any different? On what planet is it anyone's business? I am so happy for Zeke that he was able to be known and cherished for himself before his gender history came out, and for his conduct during the game and since then. Bravo, Zeke. I really enjoyed your recap and have never before been more appreciative of the form of your reflections in the whole episode, not just on the attempted drowning. Silver lining is, I got my first vote off point of the season, and going into the merge, I still have my 24-point USB. Redemption is possible for us all, maybe even for Varner.
Oh, I love that, Jody. That will to survive, and then the drowning. Man, that's perfect. Drew's flailing fish in the water, gasping for breath. Those analogies just seem like they're really spot on. Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, all the desperation, yeah.
The drowning. That just really... Next up, we got a call from Rashmi.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all my survivor friends. I don't have much to say today, except that I feel great empathy for both Varner and for Zeke. I really don't know what circumstances it was during the 2-hour tribal that resulted in Varner saying what he said. We've all been in situations in our lives when we have said things that we have regretted, but that hasn't been ever televised and broadcast. So now to go around lynching a person on social media is just terrible. I refuse to read any more stuff on Facebook or anywhere else on social media. Whatever happened has happened, and of course the networks, different programs, everybody's milking it. That's the only way I see it, and it's really heartbreaking. And I think this is the ugly side of reality TV, which has come to the front, and there is no winner in this situation. That's all I have to say. It's so regrettable. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rashmi. I understand where you're coming from there. Next up, we got a call from Jacqueline.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. Hey, Survivor fans. Oh my God. That was probably the most emotional, the most worst Survivor episode I've ever seen in my whole entire life. Like, I was thinking, like, what can I even say about that? Hindsight is 2020, but no, like, as a straight woman, I know that is the most, like, how could you think that and, like, say that everybody knew he was transgender and it's not even true? Like, that was, like what Sarah said, that was probably the most malicious thing. You know, when you think about Survivor, you always try to put yourself in that position. I think I would have gotten up and told him to leave right then and there. Like, I'm so lost for words. Like, I've seen really horrible Survivor players where they degrade women by calling them stupid, and, you know, they degrade women, and it's really made me mad that CBS has actually showed those type of people and brought them back over and over again. But this, like, was absolutely devastating to me. Like, I just can't believe it. I can't believe as a gay man that he would out someone like that. He knows the struggle, especially as an older gay man. And me as a younger, you know, straight woman, like, I felt so much empathy and sympathy, and I'm sure he feels horrible for it. He's probably literally digging his own grave right now, but that was really, really emotional, and thank you, like, to CBS and especially to Jeff, like, making him just leave. That was the most absolute best thing to do. Wow. That was crazy. And I'm sorry, Zeke, if you hear this, and you were so absolutely wonderful up there. You took it like a champ, and I would have been a bowl of tears if I were him, and he was just so gracious up there, and that just goes to show you how much of a confident person and how he's just an amazing Survivor player and how great he is. You know, last season he made it clear that he was, like, gay, and he was so proud of being gay, and he's just amazing. And I don't know, that's all I have to say. I'm just so speechless. Like, I just could not believe what happened tonight, and I hope this gets better from here on out. I don't even know what to say anymore, but yeah.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We appreciate you calling in and sharing that. Next up, we've got an email from Josh the Plush Moose from Massachusetts. Dear Joanne and Stacy, welcome to a very special episode of Josh's Feedback. Tonight's episode deals with the difference between acceptable behaviors towards scripted characters versus a real person. This week's other observations. The producers were a few weeks early in scheduling the Maypole Dance Reward Challenge. Newsflash, Ozzy excels at physical challenges, especially swimming or diving ones. The segment about the game being hard, changing players, and how people in the real world can't understand sounded eerily like people dealing with PTSD. I don't buy that Varner outing Zeke was unplanned or an unfortunate case of wording. His confessionals and bonus clips paint a clear picture that he planned to bring up something from outside the game and would do or say anything to stay. In his bonus clip, Zeke says that Varner is desperate to not be the first three-time player to never make the jury. Now we know exactly how desperate. For me, tonight's tribal council was preempted by a 20-minute PSA about the evils of outing people. I hope tribal council returns next week. We often complain about edits, but if Jeff had allowed for the normal vote, couldn't Zeke's outing have been edited out and limited to the tribe members? This might be unkind, but Varner reminds me of a politician doing damage control after saying something especially bad or stupid that caused an outcry and condemnation. I agree with you there. The episode's title, What Happened on Exile Stays on Exile. Too bad the producers didn't learn from Debbie and apply the lesson to tribal council. I'm not a fan of the Varner apology tour. When I want to hear variations of the same long song played in different venues, I listen to performances by the jam band Fish. Will Nuku take the high road, or will Zeke get outed again to the rest of the cast? And if that happens, will the nuclear option apply to that person too? Unless Zeke wins, I predict this will be the last time he plays. If Sierra's the voted mom out survivor, he'd be the trans one. Varner's done too. Even more than usual. I can't wait for the merge next week. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks, Joanne and Stacy, for all you do. I can't wait to hear what the other fans have to say. Thank you, Josh. Next up, we got a call from Harold.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all the Survivor fans. This is Harold from Boynton Beach. Let me start off by saying that I am conservative, and I've watched many seasons where there are other gay players, and they've left bad taste in my mouth. Example would be like Colton from Blood versus Water, where he just acted like a little child and would quit, and I really just did not like that, and it helped give me a perception towards certain people that I just shouldn't have had, because I've been taught in church that I should love my neighbor as I love myself. Being a Gen X, last season when I watched Brad and Zeke, watching how they interacted and how Zeke was respectful and how Zeke was able to bring someone from my generation and make them become open and to make them feel accepted, that they no longer had to hide, because that's what my generation taught. We had to keep whatever inside. Men had to be rugged, burly men. I grew a respect for Zeke just from that last season because he was such a great character. And last night, it helped me get more respect for Zeke, because when I saw Zeke's face and the hurt and almost like the shame he had on his face because of what was brought out, it was like, wow. And it gave me feeling that a lot of shows that don't give you. He gave a feeling to something, and all I got to say is, hats off to you, Zeke, for being able to not go and get angry and punch him right in the face because of what he did. As far as Varner, his legacy with me, I will probably skip today's interview with Varner, because Varner, I have nothing left to hear from you. I don't like what you did. You can only say sorry so many times. You said sorry, and as far as your Survivor legacy, I don't think Varner should be back on Survivor ever again. And it's basically, Varner, I think, fell for the root of greed, and that pursuit of money leads to the greed of unhappiness. And I think he did a big mistake. He realized his mistake, but it's a little too late. And as far as Zeke, I actually now Might even change you to be my USB because I would like to see you go all the way. And that's basically all I really got to say. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Harold.
All right. That was beautiful, Harold. Thank you.
I think Harold's so spot on with the greed angle. I watched someone at work get consumed by greed, and it just took control of them and had them doing things that were absolutely not in their best. It was like self-destructive, not to the same extent as what happened to Varner, thankfully for this person. But you could just really see it become so self-destructive when they had given in to the dark side of greed like that. Thank you for that insight, Harold. Next up, we got a call from Jack.
Wow. Just wow. Hi, Joy and Stacy and Samara friends. This is Jack. This is quite an unfortunate episode, and I can't believe what just happened. I know probably a lot of the feedback would be about the issue at Travel, but before I get into it, I'd like to talk about a few other things first. I can understand the frustration about not getting pizza at the reward challenge, especially with being out on the island with not a lot of food at the tribes to begin with. After hearing these stories at Mana, I too would probably be sad. At the Manatee Challenge, that seems like a really tough puzzle to solve. I mean, Metamorphosis, wow. I probably would have looked at the letters and tried to get them organized first before starting to put them onto the hooks. Now, here comes the frustration that everyone is probably going to talk about. I honestly don't even know where to start on this. It's a really big issue, and I didn't want to see and hated to see the whole thing play out. It was Zeke's choice to whether to tell everyone or not Jeff. After having Probst give Zeke a moment, I thought he handled himself very well. I respected Zeke's gameplay last season, and this season as well. After this incident, I give Zeke a lot more credit about how he handled this situation. I have quite a few friends that are gay, and I accept them for who they are, not because they're LGBT, and I don't think any of them are deceptive at all. I also would have attacked Varner like most of the tribe did because this is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. I mean, what the heck was he thinking? I know he was at the bottom of the tribe, but to personally attack someone like I was way out of line, I never would have ousted someone like that, even if it were for a lot of money. I hope Jeff definitely learns from this, and I think he will. But right now, I don't even know what to think about him anymore. Well, I'll talk to you guys next week. I can't wait to hear what other people have to say about this, and take care.
Thanks, Jack. Good job. Next up, we got an email from Kaylee in Georgia.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. I'm a long-time listener and my second time giving feedback. I don't have much to say about the whole episode aside from the fact that it was maybe the least enjoyable one I've ever seen. But I do have a few food for thought comments. This was another reminder that all of us, even gay people, still have a lot of work to do to become better allies to trans people. I have a feeling that if Zeke wasn't initially upfront about being gay, but Varner knew, he would not have outed Zeke as a gay man. I was also very uncomfortable when Sarah proceeded to make Zeke's outing all about her. I'm glad she's realizing that trans people are people just like herself and that she's becoming a better person, but tribal was not the time for that. This is another thing I think we as people need to work on, particularly when someone from a minority community experiences some sort of trauma. Too often I see people of the majority just talking about themselves and their experiences instead of focusing on that person and how to better understand their emotions and their needs. And finally, although it is troubling how it happened, trans visibility and representation is the main message that this country and the world can move forward in a positive direction. Millions of people watch Survivor, and if more people can finally see the humanity and the goodness in a trans person, maybe we'll eventually stop voting in ways that directly harm them. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you, Kaylee. Well said. Up next, we have an audio clip from Pat.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy, this is Pat from Springfield, Missouri, and I just had to call in this morning. It's Thursday morning. I normally don't get to watch Survivor until I get home from my run across country during the week sometime, but for some reason I woke up this morning and I thought, boy, I have time. Maybe I'll watch it. So I pulled it up on my iPad and was watching it, and I was really sweating it because my girl Sarah was getting showed a lot. I thought surely she's not going home, but they haven't showed her much this year, and so I thought, oh my gosh. But then turned out she wasn't going home. And then Ozzy's just a beast. I mean, we all know that, but the poor guy's going to have to win every challenge from now on to make it to the end, which I hate it for him because he's so good, and I really like him. And then Cherie, I just think that her and Debbie are going to make it really, really far, because I can't say quiet for Debbie, but they're just not outstanding players. In my opinion, I know everybody loves Cherie, but she just doesn't do anything for me. Oh, and Stacy, you kept saying that Sierra was tipping her hat. Look, I kept seeing it, not as tipping her hat, as raising her six-shooter. So is she shooting her six-shooter as the sheriff, or is she tipping the hat? I want you to decide that. But now to tribal count. Now, picture this. I'm sitting in my 18-wheeler in a truck stop, sitting there watching on my iPad, and when Varner says what he does, I yell out, WTF. Except I don't say WTF. Well, there's this poor truck driver sitting in his truck next to me, and he looks at me like I've lost my mind, which I kind of did. I cannot believe Varner did that. I'm sure everybody's going to say that. But has any player ever went from being probably one of the most liked players on the episode or on the season or even the whole series to being really, I don't know, I hate to say hated, but just everybody all at once hating on the poor guy? And I say poor guy, I guess I shouldn't say that. He did it himself. But what the hell was he thinking? And, you know, he said he was sorry. And to me, that saying you're sorry is kind of like the guy that gets caught cheating on his wife and then says he's sorry. It's like, he's not really sorry he did it. He's sorry he got caught. And I feel like Varner saying he's sorry, it's kind of like, well, I'm sorry, but I had to do what I had to do, which I agree in Survivor. You do everything you can and lie, cheat, whatever. I don't care. Everybody knows it. But you don't do that. And Varner being a gay man, I can't believe he did that to a gay man. I just can't imagine that. And I don't know. Zeke handled it so well. I mean, Zeke was amazing. I just can't imagine how he felt, and it's his choice. I had no clue. And, you know, I know you and Stacey said, or Joanne, you and Stacey said that people knew. Well, I didn't know. I try not to read stuff because I like to be surprised. So I had no clue. When he said it, I was just in shock. It was sad. And like you said, things happen for a reason, maybe not always a good reason, but I think in the end, this would be a positive for Zeke, but holy cow, it just shouldn't have happened. I love this season. I love every season of Survivor. I really love the season, and I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say. Thanks.
Pat, thanks for sharing that, how you saw it all.
Yeah, you did see it somewhere, so we were aware of it before his first season, but truthfully, I forgot. I just totally forgot about it. It made no difference.
Nope.
It was just something you said in passing. Oh, I saw this, and it's like, okay, and we moved on. So
it wasn't anything for us.
I never thought
Didn't
about
factor
it.
into it and playing it. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, you're right, Pat. She is doing the six-shooter thing. I think she might have tipped her hat with that six-shooter. And the last gesture she made, but yeah, I think you're right. She was doing the six-shooter thing.
Stacey's way of being right.
No, I'm acknowledging that Pat was correct.
Kinda.
All right, thanks, Pat. Next up, we got a call from Jaywaffles.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all the Survivor fans at home. This is Jaywaffles from Canada with some thoughts for this week's episode. Firstly, I want to say I've been extremely bad at getting my picks in. I've been extremely bad at sending my feedback, but I certainly appreciate your weekly recaps as well as everyone else's feedback. It really, really is enjoyable. Now, before we mention the elephant in the room, I did just want to say a quick note about the fireside chat that Brad Culpepper led concerning the toll that Survivor takes on a person's life. Let me get this straight. You decided chose to compete on a game show where you could win $1 million. You've put yourself in that situation, and now you want a pity party for how bad it is when you do it? No, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I don't agree. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and that just seems gross to me. My USB Michaela, I think, had the appropriate response of, who cares? Wah, wah, wah. Anyway, on to the other tribal. Really, really big bombshell. This is the first time that Survivor has actually been featured on my news feed for something that happened, and Tribal was actually spoiled for me. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. But regardless, Zeke, still wonderful player. I had no idea. Still amazing in my books, regardless of what's going on. Still my boy. Really enjoy watching him play and everything that he brings to the show. So no question there. And Varner. What were you thinking? Obviously, your mind was on $1 million and not anything else, which is unfortunate. Again, it is a game, so I kind of understand that. Now, some who are a little bit more cynical than I might see this as CBS's way to tackle some big issues. And you know, given all the coincidences that happened in the show, I might be on the fence a little bit. I don't know. It just seems really, really strange how everything sort of lined up to the big reveal and you know, how Tribal played out. I doubt that was the case. I still feel that CBS, you know, wouldn't have put anyone in that position. You know, it's just really strange how it all came out. So going forward, merge time, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't believe that my USB has a hope at all. I think that she might be brought along, but eventually will get picked off because I just don't think that she's well situated in the group. Brad Culpepper might see a chance. Sierra Dawn Thomas is doing really well. And honestly, I think on the other side, Zeke, I think that he's got a choices or a chance as well. Anyway, that's it for me. Kind of rambling a little bit, so my bad. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Jaywaffles. You did excellent. Next up, we got a call from Courtney.
Hi, Survivor fans. It's Courtney from Gainesville, Florida, and I was actually not going to call in this week because I was speechless. I just was completely without any type of, I was just like right now, I'm completely at a loss for words. I felt so bad for Varner. I felt so bad for Zeke. The reaction that the tribe had at Tribal was appropriate. It was just a flood of what in the world is going on, and then kind of the realization of impact of what Varner had done. I believe the best reaction was shown. It was shown to us, the outrage. It's my hope that Varner will play Survivor again, but after hearing his interview with you guys, I don't know if that is even something that he would even want to do, considering. I would like at the merge, if there's a power struggle, I would like to see Michaela, Therese, Ozzy, Aubrey, Zeke, and Sarah, and Brad, even though I'm not a real big fan of him, and Brad kind of take control, because I think that would make for really good TV, because to me they're just really great players. If I were on Survivor, I'd focus on getting on the physical threat before the strategic threat. You can get out the seat in a minute. Hold on. The player that I think is in the best position may be Brad now, because he's shown a different side of himself, and so I guess people have a better view of him. And I would hope that Debbie is next to go, just because I'm just overseeing her. Or Ty, because I just think it would be fun to get him out with two idols. I'd like that, because I don't think that he's the best strategic player. I don't think he plays with wittedness that I would like to see in the game for someone who's so good at finding idols. I wish that he would create a little bit more action there. I'm looking forward to next week. Still kind of reeling from last week, but looking forward to it. I hope everybody's having an awesome week. Bye.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, I would say I'm with Courtney in the sense that there's enough potential energy left in the remaining castaway group with so many idols and the advantage and the extra vote and all that there's potential energy to still end and have a really good season.
Yeah, I think so.
This runs the risk of putting it all at jeopardy, like several people have alluded to or directly referenced, in terms of having a stigma over the season, but there's the potential for it to still deliver big. We'll have to wait and see what happens going forward. Next up, we got an email from Carolyn from the Beautiful Bronx. Hi, Joanne and Stacy and the whole Survivor family. I just wanted to add my voice to the debate about the terrible betrayal we all watched this week. I'm sure everybody shared my outrage at Debbie lying about Exile Island so easily. What was she thinking? Other people are going to go there and come back and call her out on that, won't they? Oh, wait, yeah, as usual, the episode title was a total mislead. This is not what this episode will be remembered for, and I actually thought Debbie handled her return pretty well. The challenges were fun to watch, although I have direct Twitter confirmation from fellow New Yorkers Eliza Orleans and Rob C. that A, the reward pizza is always horrible, and B, you're so hungry by then, you don't care. As for the main drama of the night, it took me a while to wrap my head around the whole thing. My thoughts came roughly in this order. Zeke is transgender? I had no idea. You'd think CBS would be touting this as much as they did the much less interesting Audrey on Big Brother. Did I miss something? How could nobody know this after 2 seasons? Why is CBS showing this at all? Varner thought Zeke was out to everyone evidently, but he wasn't, and CBS knew it. It turns out Zeke gave permission and planned for it, along with Glad and the executives. I thought Jeff handled it all pretty well. He gave Zeke space to recover and didn't let Varner off the hook or, on the other hand, crush him to powder. If Varner is not sincere in his apologies, then he is the best actor since Oliver. When he says that he thought Zeke's past was common knowledge, and to be fair, Andrea and many, and maybe a couple of other people as well as Jeff and the whole crew knew, I believe him. When he says that he saw clues that convinced him Zeke was the next Russell Hantz, a diehard shameless liar who deserved to be called out when he proclaimed at Tribal right before Varner's outburst that he wasn't deceiving anybody, I believe him. And when he says he really regrets it and will for the rest of his life, I believe him. I know he was fired from his real estate job because of this already. As for Zeke, he's already 29, and all this seems to have been settled for him a long time ago. Even if he didn't want to out his status to everybody on the show, I can tell he had that wonderful speech all ready to go in his head just in case something like this happened. All that planning means this is a guy who knows himself and is comfortable in his own skin, the right skin, which I've come to realize is something all transgender people share and in a fair society are allowed to express with the help of therapy and medicine. Look, I'm younger, but not much younger than Varner. I have enough gay friends to know that, like him or most folks, they're not automatically comfortable with the thought of being born into a gender that doesn't match their identities. The only transgender person I knew when I was young was a local shopkeeper who dressed flamboyantly and committed suicide when he couldn't afford medical help, which added a layer of pity to my confusion. But now I know a few transgender folks, and they're among the most secure and assured people I've met since they've had to echo Jeff, dig deep to find out what they really are and take an action often painful and prolonged to get there. I'll probably never meet Zeke in real life, but with his great writing since this happened, I feel that I have. Usually I envy you guys having such a great hobby that brings you and us such joy, but I know it might be a little harder this week because this is not something everybody feels the same about, but if anybody can handle it, you can. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks for your vote of confidence.
Next up, we got a call from Jeremiah.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy. Hello, Survivor fans. This is Jeremiah Panhorst here, coming with some thoughts about this last episode. And I'm sure everyone is going to be talking about the one shocking moment, which is metamorphosis. Oh my gosh, what a hard word to try to spell out when you're tired and exhausted. I can't believe they went with that word, right? Okay, that's not really what everybody's going to be talking about. I'm sure you're going to get inundated with people wanting to talk about what happened at that most painful tribal council I've ever seen. So emotional. To me, the only thing I can say is the same thing you did, Stacy. I'm just extremely disappointed and shocked. I could not believe that happened. I can't believe that Jeff went there. I heard his interviews. I sort of understand maybe where he's coming from, but really in the end, he should know better. And that's really the big thing I'm sure everyone's going to mention is he should have known better. If it came from someone else, you'd be like, oh, I could see how that could happen. But someone who's already involved in the, lesbian, gay, and transgender community, you would think would know better. So it's just disappointing because now, like you said, Stacey, his reputation is going to be trashed, unfortunately, forever. And that's what's horrible about the whole thing. I had heard rumors that he was going to be discussing Zeke's background, but I had no idea it was going to be a tribal council and be like that, and it was just awful. So anyway, there's nothing else. I don't want to beat up the guy any more than everyone else is going to already beat him up with. So it is what it is. It's been done. He's going to have to live with it, and that's it. So wow, what a shame. Yeah, what a way to lose your USB, huh, Stacey? Wow. All right, so the most important thing now is to think about what's going on next. The merge is always so difficult to decide what's going to happen, but I really do feel like that core alliance that Brad has built up with him and Sierra Dawn Thomas and those people, and I really think they are going to take charge. Luckily, did it look like maybe Suri and Aubrey has kind of got themselves in that for a little bit? That might save them for next week. So I'm thinking they're going to go after a big target. And I know it's very cliche to say this, but I think Ozzy will be the target because he's the perfect merge boot, right? So I'm right now leaning towards Ozzy to go home. And really, that's it. I can't wait, of course, to watch the merge. We get past this painful episode. You guys did a great job covering it as usual. I cannot wait to hear what everybody else has to say. You guys take care. And this is Jeremiah coming from Southern California. Quick side note that I completely forgot to mention was the fact that I am so proud of the way Zeke not only handled himself during Tribal Council, but the way he is, of course, handling himself even now afterwards. He's an amazing individual, and I just think he deserves as much praise as possible during this whole situation because he is definitely the victim. All right, that's it for me. You guys take care.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Yeah, there was an extra video with Culpepper where he was talking about how he felt the need to break the tie that he had with Ozzy, because he had a connection with Ozzy, especially through JT before, but he was already, in his mind, he was ready to cut Ozzy loose.
Well, after seeing how well he performed at that last challenge.
It just scared him.
Yep.
He's got
wait a minute.
Culpepper's got a track record of going, whoa, that person's
I was in
scary.
Alliance with him, but
that's not in my best interest. Yeah. That was so overwhelming, and especially because Culpepper was going head-to-head with him, and he got first-hand experience, side-by-side experience with how he did not stack up. Not only did he not stack up, he was so far behind Ozzy's capacity to do that, it put fear in him, right? So certainly Ozzy's going to be a target, but if anyone can win individual immunity, it's Ozzy. Of course, depending on what the challenge is. So that's going to be interesting to see. Thanks, Jeremiah. Next up, we got a call from Jen.
Hi, everyone. This is Jen in California. I have attempted to make my feedback about 3 times now, and I think I'm just come to the conclusion that I'm speechless. I don't know what to say about the situation, except for that I'm sad, and that we're all different in big and small ways, and we should all just be treated with compassion and dignity. And I'll just leave that there. And as far as Survivor, the game we all love, goes, in an attempt to just kind of get back into the spirit of the game, with this merge being a 9-4 split, it kind of makes me recall Samoa, where they merged and had an 8-4 split. So with one faction being significantly smaller than the other at this point, maybe we have a little David and Goliath story brewing here. And I'm always one for a David and Goliath story. Root for the underdog. The FOA overcame that deficit spectacularly in Samoa, and so, you never count anyone out at this point. That's it for me. Joanna and Stacey, you handled recapping this episode this week with amazing dignity and grace. You guys are awesome. Till next week. Bye.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Jen.
Next up, we got a call from Crystal.
Hey, it's Crystal from Georgia. I haven't called in a long time. I'd had a really crappy year, and I was watching this last episode wondering what I was going to possibly call in and talk about, and boom, right there at the end, right? I just finished watching it, so I'm a bit emotional. I feel so bad for Varner, and, I feel bad for Zeke just because it isn't anybody's right to out anybody like that. But I think with the food situation and dehydration and exhaustion. I don't know, there's just a part of me where I would be so focused on that. I mean, $1 million is a lot of money, and people have done a lot more for a lot less money. So there's like a part of me that kind of understands Varner too. And then I think it did really hit him that he didn't just out Zeke to the people in that tribal council. It hit him that it was being recorded and that they're probably going to show it to all of the viewers. And then there's another part of me that wonders, I watched a show called, I think it's called Unreality or something, I can't remember, where it's just like a TV show that's fake, but it's about the Bachelor and like how they make it, but it's like fake. It makes me wonder if the producers or somebody kind of put a bug in Jeff Varner's ear, maybe saying something about that, and maybe it just seemed like a good idea to him. But that makes me feel really gross about the TV show, and I'm hoping that it was just out of exhaustion and not thinking straight that Varner did that. I know everybody's probably going to talk about that, so I wish I had thought of something else to talk about too, but just hearing that, seeing them come together behind Zeke, and I was like, they have such a strong family, and there was just a really neat, strong family vibe in the Survivor family throughout the whole episode. And I was thinking, we're so lucky that we have that through this podcast, and sometimes that sounds so silly to me, but I've had a really tough year, and it's been really nice getting to listen to everybody and just feel like my life is normal sometimes. When I listen to the podcast and I've heard everybody, because I've heard the people who have lost their animals, and I had to put one of my dogs down this year, and it was super hard, and it was the same day that I closed an adoption that my husband and I had started, because I also left him in January. So, like I said, it's been a really crappy year. Hearing the families on the podcast, keeping the podcast going so that my life sounds normal and it's something that I've been listening to has meant a lot. And I told you I was going to be really emotional because I just finished watching the episode. So now I feel silly, but like I said, it's just nice to have this group of people that we've come together over a silly TV show for real life, and everybody shares their real life stories about what's going on, and it seems like you care about each other, so it's just nice. And I do look forward to hearing what everybody else has to say, and I'm super sorry for making this super real, but I guess this episode kind of broke the fourth wall for everybody, and I'll be interested to see how everybody else reacts to it too. Thanks. Bye. Hey, this is Krista from Georgia again. I got myself together, and I just wanted to also add something that I had forgotten before is I really liked how Jeff Probst handled everything. I think he was maybe taken aback. Again, I'm hoping that production didn't know that this was happening at the time, but I think he handled it well, and he gave Zeke time to collect his thoughts while he talked to other people. And the fact that they didn't even have a vote, and Jeff was just like, yeah, Varner's going home. Like, I know sometimes it can be said, like, Jeff imparts himself into the game more than people might want, and I feel like this is one of those times that maybe there was a part of me I was like, well, maybe they should have still voted, but I really liked that him as a producer took it on himself for CBS to be like, no, this guy's going home. Like, this is a good learning lesson. It's going to start a good conversation, but we're not even going to give him the option of like continuing in this game, like the possibility that maybe he doesn't get voted out. And I liked that. Okay, bye.
Wow. I'm sorry that you've gone through all those painful things, Crystal, but thank you for sharing them, and know that we're thinking about you and sending good thoughts your way. And we appreciate you putting yourself out there like that, too.
Yes, definitely in my prayers, girl.
Next up, we have an email from Ed in Milwaukee.
Joanne and Stacy, I want to preference my remarks by saying that I spent a lot of time this week viewing articles and extra videos on this week's episode, and a lot of my comments are based on this supplementary information that was not a part of the actual broadcast. I think Probst said it best in an interview with Katie Couric when he said, think of the millions of people who have never known a transgender person. They watch Survivor and they get to know Zeke, a very cool guy, and then they find out, oh, he's transgender. I was a big fan of Zeke prior to this incident, and I'm a bigger fan now. I was shocked to discover that Zeke is transgender, and I'm equally shocked that someone, especially Varner, would out him at Tribal. For a second, I thought that Varner and Zeke might have co-conspired on a belated April Fool's joke and that this was some crazy master plan to vote out Ozzy. When I woke from my stupor, I was so happy to see all the rest of the tribe run to Zeke's defense. I was particularly touched by Sarah's words, and I think that I will remember her words for the rest of my life. Zeke is one of my all-time favorite people to have played Survivor. He is an intense and skillful competitor and is capable of playing cutthroat Survivor, but at the same time, unlike Russell Hantz, he is very likable. Last season, for example, Zeke was able to bond with Chris over University of Oklahoma football, Boomer Sooner. Yet at the same time, he had no problem blindsiding Chris. The irony is that Zeke is a very compassionate person who truly liked and admired Varner. Zeke is a superfan whose heart wanted very much to see Varner make his first trip to the jury. But Zeke also knew that as a player, it was strategically smart to vote Varner out now. As noted in a CBS Extra video, it is because of his compassion that Zeke made the strategic mistake of alerting Varner in advance that he was going to be voted out. In this age of the internet and social media, Zeke knew there was a good chance his sexual identity might get exposed. He and Probst had discussions about this when he was casting for his first season. Zeke noted in one online interview that he had prepared a response during his first season, but he totally forgot the words when it happened. Still, I think that because he had thought about it is a major reason why he was able to come up with a calm, cool, and classy response. CBS knew when Zeke was first casted that he was transgender, and that although Probst made it very clear in casting that they would honor Zeke's wish to play the game as Zeke and not as the transgender Survivor player, but I believe that CBS is secretly happy that Zeke's identity was exposed. No one, including CBS, ever expected it to happen in the way that it did, but us superfans must remember that television is a ratings-generated business, and that controversy generates ratings. CBS and the media have handled this in a classy manner. I do believe that, in the long run, this episode will have a positive impact on society. Dalton Ross said that Zeke's response was a classy reaction to a classless situation. Over 20 years ago, the late Pedro Zamora's appearance on The Real World had a positive impact on the world regarding gay rights and AIDS education. I believe that Zeke can have a similar impact on transgender issues, but I should note one major difference. Pedro actively sought the spotlight as a spokesman, whereas Zeke just wants to be Zeke. All right, thanks, Ed. Up next, we have an audio clip from Paul.
Hey, Paul in Louisiana here, and we're coming to the merge, which is where I feel the game really gets wild. It's every man and woman for themselves, and the strongest players transform from an asset into a threat. Will we still get surprises that shake up alliances? I don't think that'll stop, but offhand, I'm not sure what the producers can do to mix things up from here on out. In all honesty, I'm shocked that we're merging so early, and I wouldn't be surprised if whoever gets voted out doesn't make the jury yet. And wouldn't that be a way to shake things up? So, speaking of the jury, who do I think is going next? Well, like almost everyone, I say that Ozzy's goose is cooked if he doesn't win immunity. It's always been that way for him, and I feel bad that he's always a target when he does so much so right. But if he wins immunity, and that's very possible, I'm going to say Brad will be leaving, which is a shame because I actually like him this season. Forced to pick between the two, I'm going to pick Brad. And that would normally be my farewell here. but I do have to comment on the biggest part of the last episode. First off, we get Survivor over an antenna, and we DVR it onto an MPEG unit. On Wednesday nights, Taz and I teach a stained glass class in another building on our property, and the weather was sketchy enough to cause glitching. So every 10 minutes or so, I popped my head into the door just to make sure things were okay. It didn't take long for me to realize that Zeke was talking each time I looked in, which made me worry about him. I even wrote his name down and told Taz I thought I knew who was going just by the amount of screen time that person was receiving. I just never expected what we got though. So we watched the show and the picture was absolutely fine all the way up until Varner said, "Zeke's and then it glitched for 1 second. The only glitch in the entire episode. And then we heard about how you don't out someone like that. And I was thinking, but he's been out. And then the word transgender started popping up, and to be honest, we were confused. We came up to speed a little bit later, but it honestly took extra time because we just never suspected. How do I feel about Zeke now? Well, he'll always be one of my favorite players. Also, I wish I could handle things as wonderfully as he did. That was amazing. Varner. Well, Varner. I'd say that he was like a trapped animal just lashing out, but he knew what he was going to do. The fact that he didn't get what was wrong about it made it worse. I feel sorry for him. Very, very sorry for him because this backlash is dreadful and it won't be slowing down anytime soon. I read this morning that he's been fired because his company wants no part of this. I'm sorry for him because I don't think he's an evil person at all. Someone who just made an incredibly horrendous choice where perhaps the cameras clouded his judgment. What we learned from this is that there's always a price to pay for our actions and that words cut deep. And like so many others here, I read Varner's tweet and I almost admired it. See, there's this one sentence that bothers me, and that sentence reads as follows. I recklessly revealed something I thought everyone already knew. You know, I just can't believe that, Jeff. And you shouldn't try to cover your butt in the midst of an apology. You just apologize. Everything else is wonderful in that tweet, though. So my parting comments won't be about who goes next, but on Jeff Varner. I hope he finds peace, and I sincerely hope that others will allow him to find it. He's been through hell, and he knows he was wrong. Unless you want blood, which no one should want, let's let it be. And that's my 2 cents. Bye.
Thank you, Paul.
Well said, Paul.
Yeah. Boy, you really nailed it there. When you're apologizing, apologize. That's it. That's all. It's the only thing you need to be doing.
That's what you focused on?
Well, I think that it's because the way Varner's handled some of it has bugged me. Like some of the other people. I just kept thinking, look, you knew what you needed to do. Quit messing it up again.
Mm-hmm. I know, and I realize that this is way emotional for you because I think you're hurt and disappointed.
Yeah, I still am, too. I don't want to make it about me, though. Like someone else was saying, it's not about me. But your reaction is your emotions. Yeah.
And you're entitled to have them and process them.
Sure. And this group of folks just did a fantastic job with that. I liked hearing all of them. So we want to say a big thank you to everybody who took the time to express your thoughts and your feelings about this week's episode. A special thanks to those of you who shared personal stories as well. You can see the kind of impact those have on folks, and we've heard that over the years with the podcast. It always surprises and delights us to know that we get to be a small part of making that possible.
I think it's what's kept us trucking.
It's certainly been a part of it, yeah. So we're excited to move forward with our favorite show and to see what comes next with the Merge episode next week, which, by the way,
is 2 hours.
It's a 2-hour episode, yeah. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and we're assuming that there will be 2 people voted off and that the website has already been changed. We're going to go ahead and go with it. We did not find out about that in time to get confirmation. We didn't find out about it till late last night when the press release came out. So
actually, the press release was early.
Well, it was out. It was
the fault is mine.
Yeah,
me specifically because I had read it and then I completely forgot it.
That's true. I would have taken action.
You would have. I'm sure
that's
you would
okay,
have.
Baby. You did the best you could. So anyway, we have changed the website. There were 61. I've sent emails to all of you this morning, and so hopefully everyone gets
the people who had already made a vote out
choice. Please go back and make another one. add another one to your list of picks. So 2 vote out choices this week.
I sure hope we're right about that.
I hope we're right about it too, but that's...
We'll deal with it either way. We'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll make it work where it's fair to everyone, even if if it's a bad call. But I can't imagine they need to have 2 or 3 at least double eliminations before the finale night. And if they go in the way they typically do, but we don't know that they will. But
because it's what? Game changer.
Yeah, that's right. And so I am assuming that it will be 2 people going home. So that's what we're going with, right or wrong. And I forgot, you will not be able to change your USB or add a new one until after the coming week's episode. And so, because that's when the merge is, and though technically it's not a double, et cetera, we're still going to have to go with that. So that won't happen this week, but
that's
the following week.
Choosing to handle
Well, that's how it would have happened anyway, but because it's a 2-hour, Mike had pointed out that, but hey, usually
it's a double episode.
Yeah, it's a double episode.
You may gain some extra insight before you have to make your decision.
Yep. So
okay,
that's just the way it is.
I want to say Happy Easter, and let's see, I'm sure my Israeli friends and colleagues will chastise me for this, but I want to try Pesach Sameach. Happy Passover to all of you who are celebrating this week. We'll be back on Wednesday for the recap show.
And more of our favorite show.
Have a good one.